Let's step onto the muddy cobblestone streets of 1830s London. When a murder happened here, there was no yellow police tape. Curious neighbors and beat cops simply trampled right through the alley, wiping away bloody footprints and accidentally kicking the murder weapon. The process of determining how someone died was mostly guesswork. A coroner would inspect the body, listen to whatever the local neighborhood gossip was, and write down a cause of death that sounded plausible to a jury. As London rapidly swelled into a massive industrial metropolis, criminals gained a powerful new advantage. A killer could commit a crime, walk a few blocks away, adopt a fake name, and completely vanish into the dense, anonymous crowds. To combat this, Scotland Yard made a quiet, desperate move in 1842. They pulled 8 men out of their uniforms and created the world's first specialized plainclothes detective branch. The polite Victorian public absolutely hated them. Because these men operated in disguise, the press sneered at them, calling them spies and slinkers in the shadows, viewing them as completely untrustworthy. To survive this public relations nightmare and actually catch criminals who were adapting to the sprawling city, these detectives realized that simply observing the streets wasn't enough. They needed undeniable, objective scientific proof. The most terrifying threat of the era was poisoning, specifically with arsenic. It was so commonly used by greedy relatives trying to accelerate a will that it earned the dark nickname the inheritance powder. It was an effective weapon. Arsenic was cheap and completely tasteless when slipped into a cup of tea and left no visible traces that a coroner could spot during a standard physical exam. But in 1836, an English chemist named James Marsh invented a reliable chemical method to detect it. Looking at this early laboratory setup with its array of glass flasks and tubes, you can see the exact moment when criminal investigation transitioned into hard science. The Marsh test worked by converting a sample of the victim's tissue into a gas. As that vapor traveled through a heated glass tube, any hidden poison would break down and deposit a stark, dark metallic mirror stain right onto the glass. This meant a murderer could no longer rely on a visual inspection to hide their tracks. Even when a corpse showed no outward signs of foul play, its internal chemistry could now be used to name the culprit in a courtroom. While toxicology was solving invisible crimes, the physical environment where a crime took place remained a severely contaminated mess. It took the disastrously botched investigations of the Jack the Ripper murders in the late 1880s to finally force Londoners to accept that alleys and bedrooms had to be immediately cordoned off from the public. As police learned to secure these areas, they turned to a tool that had been gaining traction since the 1860s, the camera. By taking photographs, detectives could capture the exact placement of a body, the scattered objects around a room, and the spread of blood before anyone had a chance to step on or move the evidence. Investigators could now freeze a gruesome moment in time, allowing them to revisit the physical reality of the street days or even years later from the quiet objectivity of a laboratory. Even with a preserved scene and a suspected cause of death, identifying a suspect remained difficult. A repeat offender could often avoid harsher sentencing simply by adopting a fake name or shaving their mustache after an arrest. To combat this, police stations in the 1860s began collecting their first real biometric data by taking stark, emotionless mugshots of repeat offenders. But criminals could alter their appearance to fool photographs. So Alphonse Bertillon introduced a system based on measuring unchangeable anatomical features. Officers would take clinical measurements of a suspect's skull length, foot size, and arm span to create a permanent mathematical profile. The problem with the Bertillon system was human error. 2 different officers measuring the same arm might get 2 different numbers. The solution arrived in the 1880s when Sir Francis Galton began meticulously studying fingerprints, mapping the unique loops, whorls, and arches to extract reliable data directly from human biology. The payoff for this research came in 1902. A burglar named Harry Jackson was convicted of a robbery for one simple reason. He left a single fingerprint on a freshly painted windowsill. Jackson's conviction proved that the era of relying on unreliable witnesses and coerced confessions was ending. Undeniable biometric data had finally defeated the criminal's greatest weapon, anonymity. By the late 1800s, public perception of the plainclothes officer had shifted. The detectives once dismissed as slinkers in the shadows were now being celebrated as the intellectual elite of the police force. The real-world application of chemistry and magnifying glasses at Scotland Yard directly inspired literary icons, most notably Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's creation, Sherlock Holmes. But there was a darker side to this new scientific obsession. The Victorian urge to categorize every aspect of life eventually led to dangerous overreach. This diagram shows the symbolical head, a visual representation of phrenology. Researchers like Cesare Lombroso pushed this pseudoscience, claiming criminality could be proven by measuring the slope of a forehead or jaw. This flawed method was treated as objective science, giving a scientific veneer to prejudices, disproportionately targeting poor and immigrant populations. In a single century, policing moved from night watchmen with wooden rattles to specialized technicians with fingerprint databases. These early forensic experiments established the methodology used today, finding truth in physical evidence rather than neighborhood gossip.